welcome to another episode of Road to Recovery. I am here with Javier García Iza. He is from Mexico and he is the CEO of iOS Offices. iOS Offices was founded in 2007, so they're a pretty big player and a longtime player in the co-working industry. And they have over 10,000 members in 35 business centers across Mexico. We're really excited to talk to you today, Javier, and happy to get your perspective on what's been going on with COVID-19, especially coming from North America. If I'm allowed to say that, I'm Canadian, so I consider Mexico part of the North American continent. Yeah, why don't you give me a little introduction to what you guys have been dealing with and how far along you are in the crisis at this time?
Well, thank you very much, Erin. This is a great honor for me. On COVID-19, well, I think we are not the first country dealing with this. So we had China first, and then Iran, Italy, Spain, Europe in general, then the US, and Mexico is a little bit far behind. Thankfully, this time we are dealing with something that many countries have already dealt with. So at least we have some sort of preview of what will happen sometime in advance. Mexico started getting its first case of COVID-19 approximately 5 weeks ago, and governments, state governments, acted quite fast and started doing these sort of mild quarantines. I say mild, and maybe because they're unclear. The government has not been very clear of what is expected and how are we gonna fix. They say many things and impose a few things, but they don't do it as a whole. So we, as a co-working company, we're not very clear on what to do. So we had to build up as we go and try to learn what is going on. The country has almost 5,000 cases so far, and with the proportional amount of deaths as well. And our hospitals are still quite empty, and people, it's basically at home. We just had our Easter week, which is a very big holiday in Mexico, and nobody went out on holidays. Restaurants have been closed for a month, and there have not been any wedding parties, which are very big, no stadium, no concerts. So all of that has been gone for a month, and people, it's living at home.
No, that's fantastic. And again, I think the whole world was kind of hit with this and a little bit surprised by everything being shut down so quickly. But 5 weeks ago isn't too far off from what most people experienced. I think Canada as well as the US would be around the 5-week mark as well right now. Can you tell me a little bit of, yeah, go ahead.
Well, very different from the US, because 5 weeks ago, we had one case. Maybe they already were like in the hundreds.
Ah, yes.
And when we quarantine, my perception is that Mexico quarantined quite early, which has flattened the curve quite efficiently. We are still not even close to being in a bad place. We know it's coming. We are waiting for it, but we have not been seeing in Mexico anything close to what we read about from Italy, Spain, the US, or other countries.
And yeah, that's probably has a lot to do, like what you say, with early detection and figuring it out and being able to look to the other countries that were in a disaster already and respond as quickly as possible. So, but that's very interesting for you with regards to your proximity to the US and the fact that they're struggling so much right now. Like, are there plans or any kind of discussions as to how you're going to interact with the borders there, and how, you know, maybe those people would start coming in, especially to do with a business like yourself? Like, you guys probably do have a lot of travelers and a lot of international customers that use your business centers. How is that affecting things, and are there any plans for that or to mitigate those issues?
Well, it is definitely affecting us. A very personal point of view on this situation is that I think India and Mexico, and particularly India, a few weeks ago did a 1.3 billion people quarantine. I think they did good because a country like India could have been terrible if they don't do something like that,
Mhm.
that extreme, that early, because they might not have the resources and their streets are quite crowded and their markets. So I think the only way, the only salvation from a life point of view, a health point of view, for a country like India was to be that radical. I
Mhm.
think in Mexico something similar is happening. We went a little bit radical because our health system knows they will not be there for us in case this gets very horrible. So they are like panicking everyone to stay at home, and we'll see what happens. So you are asking me how has this been affecting us? Well, it's I don't know. Um, I don't know, and this is why. At first, the first week of quarantine, we still saw between 60 and 90% of our coworkers walking in our doors every day because people will stay at home, but people that will go to work might still go to work. Then the second week, we had a little less clientele, but that was because it was like the week before Easter. So from Monday to Friday, we started seeing an important decrease on clientele. And then the Easter week, nobody works in Mexico. So that's why I answer, I don't know. So is
Mhm.
people not working because of Easter holiday and because of the coronavirus? It's like a combination. And this week, we are seeing a little bit more of clients walking in the door, but still, we as co-workings, we manage packaging for clients. So, for example, last week we received almost 300 certified packages from FedEx and those kind of companies.
That's right.
And for example, on Sunday, I needed, I was doing some sort of interview like this one, and electricity got cut off in my apartment building because there was very strong winds. So I drove to my office, and fortunately, we have very good internet connection here.
Mhm.
So I took the conference from my office. So yeah, the co-working, it's still some need for a part of the people that is working. So it has impacted us, but we are still doing many things, which I will
Mhm.
be very glad to share with you.
No, well, maybe we can start there then. I would love to hear what you guys are doing to prepare. Again, you said you haven't fully been impacted by it yet, or there's not really a way to gauge whether or not you've been impacted by it because you're coming into what you think is probably going to be the worst of it, whether it be the lockdown continues, maybe there will be further restrictions. Yeah, so I would love to hear what you guys have been planning or how you're preparing for things to either get worse or if you eventually begin to recover, how you're going to kind of implement those policies and procedures to carry forward into the future.
Well, it's been quite a ride, and I might be able to share something with you with my screen, and maybe you can look at it. But first, I'm gonna say the same thing again. I didn't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I started talking with people here in my company, and I gathered the sense of who was having at least the right mindset. So I did this interdisciplinary kind of team with a girl from communication, a girl from finance, somebody from sales, and all from different levels of the company, not only the C-suite or the
Mm-hmm.
leaders of the company, but it's a quite mix. We even have a risk guy here in Mexico because we do have earthquakes quite often. So it turns out he has a specialty on pandemics or
Oh,
like
okay.
this kind of crisis. So he's also in this team. So this team of 6 people started making decisions. And so what we did is, first of all, we did a hygiene campaign. We bought a lot of antibacterial gel and distributed throughout our centers, thousands and thousands. It is big and small presentations, so people will carry them in their pockets and purses, or with their backpacks in their laptops. And we try to, we actually didn't use the word coronavirus or COVID back then because it would have been too early, and we would have put some panic that was not there yet, because it was not even news in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
So we did that. We also bought thousands of mouth covers and masks, and put them in the reception desks, so our clients could take one if they wanted to, just besides the antibacterial gels. And then we started receiving more and more information from the government. And yeah, some companies stopped walking in and working uh, before others. And so what we basically done is maintain a very close communication with our community. We have so far sent around 20 different communications of what is going on in our center, in our country, in the world. How are we handling? We also train our staff, our cleaning staff, but also our reception staff, to know how to hygiene an office, like how to disinfect. And we also train them on what to do in case of a positive COVID confirmed kind of client. So we've done over like many hours of training with a lot of people, and we also train ourselves on how to react in any of these cases. And then we start seeing a lot of people working from home. So
Mm-hmm.
we did a home office kit. So we send our clients whatever they want. We can send them the IP phone
Mm-hmm.
to their home, so they can plug in and have their office right there. We are also sending the chair, because many people don't have a chair, an appropriate chair to work with in their
Yeah.
home. And we also gave a life-size free video conference room for all of our clients, which has been very well received. Then we asked, and then by this point, we have been doing more and more and more committees. So we ended up doing 8 committees: one of cash and finance, one of health and safety, one of new sales and growth. And so we started trying to adapt to this new reality.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how are we gonna uh, sail through this storm, because we are all together in this ship, in
Mm-hmm.
this ship, and this is where we are, and we want to keep afloat. Then we learn. Well, that is basically what we done. We created a lot of committees,
Mm-hmm.
and so far those committees have proposed around 50 initiatives, and these 50 initiatives are delivered with about 60 of our members. So most of our company is involved in the solution of what is going on. So we have this 3 times a week call with Zoom or Life Size, where 20 or 30 people, the leaders of each initiative, come together and tell us where they are, what they're doing, what do they need. And many things have come out of those. We're still here.
No, that's amazing. It sounds like you guys were really proactive, because I've been talking to people all around the world. I've talked to people in Hong Kong, Bulgaria, Italy, especially, and of course the US and Canada. And it sounds like you were a lot more proactive. And I think that's great that you could, of course, look to other countries and see, hey, we need to act on this. But like you said, having someone within your company for disaster relief, whether it be for things like earthquakes or terrorist attacks or any kind of catastrophe that could happen within a region that you are. I think that's really important, and a lot of spaces don't have people like that available. So it sounds like you guys were even further prepared by having someone like that on your team. So is that something, of course, like that that you guys planned for, like to have this person have that type of education, or was that a little bit, of a surprise that he was just trained in pandemic?
Was total surprise. The guy has been here for over 2 years. He comes
Okay.
to all of our events, and he always sends security reports. And many of our clients, our members, they ask for security guidelines and procedures. So he delivers them to them, explains them, creates them. And a few weeks ago, when I asked Antonio, so where did you study? And he gave me this name, like the Center for Catastrophe, and like I didn't know it even existed. And, what did you study? And he goes like, I have a specialty in I don't know, some sort of global crisis handling or something like that.
Mm.
So I was really surprised to have a guy like that on our team.
Yeah, like I find it really interesting, and it's not something that our heads go to, right? That maybe something like this could happen to us, but we are centers and pillars of communities, co-working spaces and business offices alike, that a lot of responsibility does fall on you. So I think it's extremely important to have people that have this type of education and to have your staff understanding that. And I think a lot of spaces are going to come out of this understanding absolutely that's going to be the case moving forward, and they will be more prepared. So thank you for for that example. I guess something to look at with all this, and of course there's a lot of speculation happening as to, okay, where is this going to leave the industry? Like there's some economic fears, there's all sorts of businesses that might be coming out of this struggling, or people that might not make it through. That's probably not the case for you guys, but moving forward, talking about your clientele and the companies that you service, how do you think the world is going to look for them now, and what do you think that means for co-working?
Well, thank you for your positive wishes, and yeah, we are doing everything to keep afloat. It's been a very intense month, even though I see a lot of friends and people just being at home. For me, it's been the opposite. We have worked so hard. I some days I wake up at 6 a.m. I open my laptop in my bed still, and then I see my watch and it's already noon, and I haven't eaten anything or gotten out of bed, and I've been on the phone for the whole morning, texting, and days go like that. Then you end up at 9 p.m. We've done a series of webinars. So we invite people that know many things. So we've done like 45 webinars so far to keep our community connected.
Amazing.
We have had around 8 or 10,000 views so far. We already have 20 more webinars scheduled. So maybe you can be in one of those.
Yeah, I would love to.
It will be amazing if you can do that. And yeah, I see a shift, definitely. So what have we learned from this? I learned something new. I learned that co-working is an essential business. And why are we essential? Well, technically we are essential because we deliver telecommunications, so we cannot stop that. We are the main phone number, center of contact for many companies. So they are depending on us to handle that call and to answer that number. But also we are the legal address for many companies as well, like thousands of companies in our case. So if they are to receive anything from FedEx or an official document from the government or their corporate office from across the border or across seas, we have to be here to be able to get that package, that communication, that mail. Also, we deliver service to many companies that are essential. We deliver service to many pharmaceuticals, to some labs, to many oil companies. iOS offices, it's the office of over 20 oil companies. So they are working, and we need to be here for them. Um, and also we created this, I don't know the words in English. We in Mexico call it something like collection center for charity. So
Mm-hmm.
we actually are collecting medical equipment, food, and food supplies, and other things for people that have no jobs anymore, because and for doctors and nurses. So that is basically what we've learned. And what do I see in the industry? I think companies in a few months or years, because I'm not really sure how long these will last,
Mm-hmm.
will look more into flexible space. I think, and this is a very personal, many people is discovering that working from home is not feasible. Not in all cases. Many of my friends and people that I know cannot even have this kind of video conference because they have kids running around. They have maybe a maid also. They have no room with privacy. They are being interrupted constantly, and most of them will have a wife or a husband, and that also will not allow them to have the privacy they need to have this sort of meeting. So I think it's going to be, I'm not sure how it's going to be. I cannot predict the future, but I think companies will be more open to flexible space like co-working, but not necessarily to a full-time home office.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a lot of what I've been hearing as well too. That of course, the industry that we're in, we're trying to move perspective forward, or our agenda forward, which is flexibility is the future. Like that's what we preach. That's what our business models are about. And I think everybody saw this shift happening. And there's all these statistics for by 2021, like 50% of the world's population will be remote, and there's all these statistics coming out. But then you have a catastrophe like COVID hit and force everybody into that without them even wanting it. Companies that did not foresee themselves becoming remote, all of their staff are now working remotely. And I think also on the flip side of what you're saying, they're realizing what they can do, right? So they understand, okay, maybe we don't need to be in the office 5 days a week.
All right.
You're
Okay.
right. So with that being said, you're going to have maybe a shift toward a hybrid, right? Instead of people
Yeah.
constantly being in the office, you're going to have the ability to maybe work from home sometimes, maybe work from a flexible space, and maybe sometimes going into the office. So I've been hearing that from a lot of people, that the adaptation is going to happen much faster. But absolutely, people are not going to be wanting to work from home, because I think we all realize now we need to be socialized. We need to be
We
around
need.
people.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know how old are you are in and how long have you been around, but I remember in the 90s, Nortel in Canada
Mm-hmm.
was very for home office. Like he was very forward. They were very forward on doing home office, and they failed. So many companies have tried this for 20 or more years, and it's never been feasible. We want to socialize. We want to get dressed. We need to like tune into this sort of networking business kind of mood,
Mm-hmm.
and not stay in the house mood, because it's not the same. And yeah, I think co-working, it's like quite in the middle. We are a good balance between the traditional corporate office, like come here every day, warm the chair and do not move and be on time, and check your card every morning,
Mm-hmm.
and the home. We're like in the middle, like we're some sort of flexible thing that might work for everyone, because we are professionals.
Mm-hmm.
We have good uh, furniture, telecommunications, a lot of facilities that are appropriate for business, and we are not at the like rigid corporate place, and we are not at that too flexible home, like where, I mean, you must have heard of this Great Place to Work Institute.
Great Place to Work Institute?
Yeah, it's this company that certifies you like a great place to work company. I don't know, maybe it's not very popular in Europe, but in America it's a thing. Like it's like they certify you, so you will fill out many things. They will do a lot of audits, so you will be certified as a great
Mm-hmm.
place to work. Well, when we did that, I learned that great place to work has a key element on the name of their company or their institution, and it is to work. It is not only a great place, because many people confuse that for, yeah, it's a great, people is very nice and very warm, but yeah, no, it's to work. I mean, we need a great place to work, to be productive,
Mm-hmm.
to deliver. And at home, you have a great place, but not necessarily a great place to work.
No, absolutely. And again, for myself, I do work from home, and I have worked from home for at least the last 2 years. And I have always been a hybrid worker, where I get, moments where I just want to be in a nice space and somewhere very professional and around other people. And then maybe some other times, if I need to make a lot of phone calls, I'll stay home that day so that I'm not bothering the co-working space that I'm working from. So I find the hybrid works really well for me. I know that a lot of people are struggling right now with working from home, whether it be because of their children or motivational factors.
Yeah.
So I think that for that reason alone, co-working is not going anywhere. And again, I've been getting a sense that it's probably going to be coming out a lot stronger than it ever was, even though we might lose some spaces due to the economic, pressures and financial issues. But they're just going to pop right back up, and I think that they're going to expand rapidly, because we're going to be seeing more spaces probably in rural areas, so not just city centers, like outside of the city, where it provides less of a commute for people as well that want to work closer to their homes. And then of course you're going to see companies downsizing, right, from this. Could be financially for them, or because they see the benefits of maybe saving the money on the real estate costs, and that being in a 10-year lease is not beneficial to their companies if a disaster like this were to come along again in the future. So
Yeah.
yeah, interesting stuff.
No, I remember you mentioned something about what will happen when this slowly normalize again. Life
Mhm.
will start to normalize again, and I think this is our new normal.
Mhm.
I think it's. I mean, COVID is going to be here for a while. I don't know. Experts from Harvard and many other institutions predicts 40, 60, 80% of the population getting this virus. So if we are at 1.5 million so far, or something like that, we are not even still at 1%. The
Mhm.
US, it's not even at 1%. So I think this is going to be a part of our lifestyle for some period of time, but I don't think it's the being at home, it's going to be part of our lifestyle forever.
Mhm.
People will start adapting. Densities will change in airplanes, in buses, in schools. Cleaning measures will be normal. um, i I had unfortunate, excuse my English, but
No.
my grandfather was sick from heart disease a few times. And at one point, he already had that condition, right? He used to run a register with cash at a store downtown here in Monterrey. So he used to do the cash register balance at the end of the day. So he will count all the bills and then do a report. So I don't know if you're
Mm.
familiar with that procedure decades ago. And he will have the use of wetting his
Yes.
thumb with
Yeah.
a, and he contracted anthrax or some sort of disease, and which finally made him die, right? So my family is being very strong on hygiene since I was
Mhm.
very little. So I never touched my face, I never put my fingers in my mouth, and I basically wash my hands every time I walk into a place. and we are used to that. So I think it's gonna be a normal thing. People being a little more careful on their hygiene.
Mhm. No, I hope so. I think that we should be anyway. Come on, we know so much better now. We're so advanced. There's no reason for us not to be hygienic. So, but no, it'll be really great. I think something that was good to hear from you is about your disaster relief and having someone on your team like that. That's something I hope to see in more spaces moving forward. Because again, you guys are pillars in the community, and people look to you for guidance and how to approach situations like that, or even just be there for them if they need assistance, right? So maybe talking about that and going into your community a little bit more. Right now, we're seeing a lot of different packages being given to people if they've lost their jobs or if they've been laid off for a certain time because maybe they aren't needed to work during this time because their companies are shut down or not currently operating. Is there anything that your government has been doing to help relieve that? And are you guys available as a resource to help people access
that? Sadly, no,
that?
Aaron. It's that's why our government communications have been very vague and unclear,
Mm-hmm.
because as they are not supporting um like companies or unemployed people as much as we would love to hear. um, yeah, it's we are not really relying on our government to
Mm-hmm.
take us to go ahead with this crisis. So I think it actually it's impacting the popularity and the acceptance of the governing officials, because I don't think people is happy, obviously, with the crisis, the virus, and with what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. And so that's really interesting because again, like I'm coming from the perspective of what our government's doing here in Germany, right? So you wonder across the world with the economic effects, and you also mentioned India, where I'm hoping to speak with some people as well to get an understanding of how they're going to support these economic hits, right? And so this is really important. And so as you say, maybe in that instance, the reason you guys are reacting so well is because you know you have yourselves to rely on, where I think it's in some other countries we rely a little too much on the government, and so we're way too free, with the way that we're still conducting our interactions in public, so we're not taking it as seriously. So I think that makes a lot of sense as to why you guys
Yeah,
adapted these
I've
rules.
never seen it from that perspective, but yeah, it makes sense. Yeah,
Hmm.
we cannot rely on them.
Yeah, and
We
it's
actually have to serve through whatever they are not being clear on.
mhm. No, and it's also interesting. Like if I was speaking with a woman in Hong Kong as well, and they carry masks around with them and give it to people who don't wear them, and that's just the citizens there. That has nothing to do with the government, or the government is still letting people work there, and they have the whole time. But the citizens know how to behave in those situations, like you were saying that you've been trained your whole life. They all wear masks, and they give them to people who don't have them or weren't able to order some, and they're making it their initiative to change the course of how their city can end up. So it's very interesting to hear these perspectives. So maybe to finish this up, if you have a little piece of advice for anyone else that might be watching, or people in the co-working industry, as to something that you learned, or how they can get through this crisis based on what you've experienced.
Yeah, well, the first part of that comment would be, I've learned a lot from other co-working. So a few weeks ago, I called a friend in New York and I called a friend in California, and they were already in a very terrible moment. Actually, the guy I was speaking with had the virus, and he
Mm-hmm.
was at home, and he was ill at the moment. And surprisingly, most co-workings in that moment in New York were still running. I was impressed. I was like, why? How? I mean, it's New York. It's like terrible right now. So I think my advice for my fellow colleagues, co-workers around the world will be reinvent yourself. Uh, be support your staff. Our staff is very important. So we have been able to deliver this home office program for 50 to 60% of our staff. So we are not fully staffed at the moment. We are only half capacity, or some days even less. We go down to 37% staff only. So we try to help them to feel motivated, to feel safe, to also be with their families, because on an emotional side, there is this sense of getting together, and try to do as many things as creatively as possible. Do not have one leader in the company, but empower the team to be all of them leaders, and to together serve this storm, because this is not a one-man job. and and also there's this word that we used last year. We go every year on a convention, all of my staff. So last year there were almost 300 of us at Ixtapan de la Sal in the south of Mexico, doing a 4-day retreat with training and parties and gifts and recognitions for the whole year. And the word we use this year in December is persistence. So we are persisting, and we're going to persist through this. So that would be my other advice for my colleagues, to persist. I mean, the hit we are taking, our landlords are taking it as well. So it is, if we can manage to, as a whole, lower down a little bit, setting down the pace, and as a whole come back together, and to not break relationships with clients or with vendors, but to understand each other, that we're going through this rough period. We will all emerge, quite possibly, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more than the relations that break. I've been saying and repeating this a few times, but the way I see it, Erin, is that we are in this ship together, and a storm hit us together. Me, my vendor, my client, my staff, we are all together. This is not the moment to jump into the water, because anyone that gets off the boat will die. And if we do not work together on the boat will sink. So this is a community. This is not only one co-working thing. This is the co-working is built up with vendors, with clients, with staff, with the community in general. So we are in this together, and we're gonna see through the storm together.
Absolutely. And that's something that, again, a recurring theme that I've been hearing is, we're coming back to our humanity, I think. At the end of the day, we're all a business. We're trying to conduct a business here, but we are humans, and the whole purpose of why we do co-working is so that people can come together, right? So remembering that and moving that forward, I think that's a really great piece of advice. And I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. And if you need anything, like, reach out to us. We're happy to help you. We have neighbors not so far from you. I can send you more masks from Berlin if we need to. People from Hong Kong offered to send me some. So let's share the wealth and stay as a community. And yeah, thank you so much, Javier. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Erin. Great to meet you. And
Yes.
where can I see this later or hear about it?
I will send you all the information and make sure that you know. And of course, I'll put all the links that you mentioned about some of the companies in the connection, so that people can access that information as well.
Well, thank you very much, Erin.
Thank you, Javier. You have a great day, and we'll stay in touch.
You too. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.